Okay. All right. So the recording started. So again, thank you, and good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to session number 3 here. This is for the T3 for API. This is on API Connect. What's new in the UI? So we have the UI lead for API Connect, Chris Bygrave, and he will be going through a lot of useful information here. So Chris, we thank you for joining. And at this point, we'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thanks. Yeah, hi, my name's Chris Bygrave. I'm going to take you through some of the high-level stuff that's changing between V4 and V5, and then I'm going to do a bit of a deeper dive later on. But do jump in at any time with any questions or any suggestions of things that you'd like to see sort of elaborated or touched upon. So I've got a rough agenda here, but it's just a pencil outline. I want to tell you the big changes between 4 and 5. Some of it's brand new, some of it's redesigned, and some of it's been thrown out completely. I'll run through 3 of the 4 interfaces. I'll run through Cloud Manager, API Designer. The Developer Portal, I believe you guys have another session set up for Developer Portal with Chris Dudley, and he's way better placed to take you through that stuff than I am. So I'll leave that to him. And then after all of that, I want to delve into the design experience. It's probably the area of the product from V4 that's changed the most in V5. So I want to spend a little bit of time on that and make sure everybody understands what we've changed, why we've done it, and what all the cool new toys are in there. So, big changes. One of the big changes is we've thrown out one of our portals. We had a basic portal and an advanced portal in version 4. We've remediated the basic portal completely, and so we're shipping V5 with just one developer portal, which is a big win for simplicity. There were always 2 real use cases that I saw for people using the basic portal. One was to help test things out really quickly in a simple end-to-end scenario, and to improve on that, we've actually built in tools into API Manager itself, so you don't even need the basic portal for those use cases. And the other use case was that in some scenarios, the basic portal was quicker than the advanced portal. And that wasn't because the basic portal was fast, it was because we had some performance issues on the advanced portal. Chris Dudley's done some amazing work with Ev and the rest of the team there to make the developer portal fly in version 5, so that use case is closed off as well. So, 2 portals down to 1. And in version 4, we had API Manager. That was where all your development work took place. That's where all lifecycle and management work took place, and that was all connected live to a management server. We really wanted to take a different approach with V5. Learn some lessons from StrongLoop as well. So we're providing an API Designer view in addition to API Manager. API Designer doesn't run on the management node, it runs on your laptop. You can go install it now from npmjs.org. The package is called API Connect. And you can run the API Designer, the full GUI, on your laptop without connecting to a management node at all. API Manager is still there, still with the full draft experience, but we've given you this laptop experience as well. So, picture form, we've got the V4 Cloud Management Console still exists. It's called the Cloud Manager in V5. API Manager from V4 has been split into 2. We've got the API Designer running on your laptop, and we've got the API Manager running on the management node. And the basic developer portal and advanced developer portals from V4 have been combined to just one developer portal. I've got a few screens that just show V4, V5 side by side to give you a feel of how the look and feel is changing and where similar sorts of functionality can be found now. I'm going to start with the Cloud Manager, but I'm not going to spend too long on this because it's very much a redesign of the cloud management console. Similar functionality, just with a much cleaner look and feel. This one here is V4. This is our home view with some analytics, statistics about the state of your management servers and your gateways. In version 4, we have something very similar, with much more pretty charts provided by Kibana and the analytics team, which I believe Graham showed you yesterday. There are other views in the cloud management console, like management of clusters and things, that we also have updated and brought forward in version 5 as well. And if you see along the top, we've got organizations, users, TLS profiles, user registries, settings, all the same kind of concepts as you'll see listed down the left-hand side on version 4. So it's a fairly straight one-to-one mapping of concepts from V4 Cloud Management Console to V5 Cloud Manager. So if you're new V4, you should feel fairly at home with Cloud Manager. But do reach out to us on Slack if you don't find that's the case.
So Chris, it looks like, sorry to jump in there. So Chris, it looks like the concept of the cluster has been renamed to service. So for example, gateway cluster is now gateway service. That's, I think it's just a change in name only. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a labeling change just to make things more consistent with the rest of the stack.
Okay, all right, cool, thanks.
All right, so I'm going to jump on to API Manager. This shows version 4. We're looking at our draft APIs views here. Obviously, the same view exists in version 5. It just looks a little bit different, a little bit cleaner, a bit simpler. We have this view on both API Designer and API Manager. These are all your draft APIs. These map directly to your Swagger files. Now, environments. This is another slight naming change between 4 and 5 that I should get across. In version 4, this is a view of your environments. It's a view of all the settings pages for your environments, where you can go configure portal URLs, policies, API endpoints, gateway clusters, all that sort of stuff. But we realized in 4 that if you look down that left-hand side there are other concepts in there that are also scoped by environments, like management, developers. These are all, sorry, Slack is going crazy in the background. These are all environment scope concepts, but they're kind of scattered about the UI, and we wanted to try and unify those and make the concept of environment a bigger container for these things. So that's what we did. This is the new homepage actually for API Manager. This is showing all of your catalogs. A catalog is a V4 environment. So that's another piece of terminology to get used to. If you click on any one of these large boxes, you're going to open up that catalog, and you should see a whole host of options along the top. Things like the products view, which is analogous to management in version 4. This is where you can control the life cycle of your products as you move them through the system. Approvals, subscriptions, developers, analytics, settings is all contained within this new catalogs view.
Chris, this one question that came about, I think, was germane to the page you just on. So the concept of an app was there. Could you just briefly touch on that? Because that is a new concept for V5.
I can. I think this is going to be covered in more detail in API Designer later in the week, when we're starting to talk about the strong loop aspects that have been brought into the product. But at a very, very quick high level, which is about as deep as my understanding goes, when you use API Designer and you create Swagger files that are backed by strong loop applications that need to be running somewhere on a server in order to implement your APIs, you would take those applications, you would take that strong loop model and you would deploy it to an app. Those apps would be running inside a Liberty Collective with a controller, and these are all features that you can enable and disable in the new Cloud Manager. You can manage Liberty collectives as well as gateway clusters, management clusters, and those sorts of things. So you can also create apps and things here to house those strong leap aspects of the models and data sources that we brought into the API Designer experience.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not going into any more detail on that on this call, but I will make sure that it gets covered properly in the API Designer session.
Right, thanks, Chris.
But you're right, they would all appear here alongside your catalogs. They would be true peers to your catalog. Just to catch the other various bits and pieces of UI that we had in V4 and API Manager, they are all present in version 5. If you click the hamburger icon over on the top left, you'll get a slide-out menu here. Dashboard takes you to your catalogs and apps. Drafts takes you to your draft experience, which I'm going to go into more thoroughly in a little while. And then the admin section takes you to this view here, which is where you can manage your users, you can manage custom roles, you manage the TLS profiles and the user registries. Basically, the rest of the provider organization-specific configuration options that we have in version 4. That's all taken care of, and that's all in the admin section in V5. So, the design experience. Any questions on catalogs and Cloud Manager and those bits and pieces before I sort of dive a little bit deeper into drafting APIs and assembly?
Bienvenue à AT&T Téléconférence Service. Veuillez.
Let me check. So.
Votre code d'accès n'a pas été reconnu. Veuillez ressaisir votre code d'accès.
Yeah, I thought I muted everybody. Hold on one second. I'm going to do this again.
Votre code d'accès n'a pas été reconnu.
So, Chris, if you want to hit *1, you'll unmute yourself. Just give me a quick shout once you do so.
Hey, can you hear me?
Okay. All right. Any questions for Chris on what we've seen so far to this point on the UI and such? So take yourself off mute.
Bienvenue au centre de conférence. Veuillez. Vous entrez en conférence. Micro coupé.
Hold on one second.
Tapez étoile 1 pour ouvrir votre micro. Votre micro est coupé. Tapez étoile 1 pour ouvrir votre micro. Micro, 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 micro.
Yeah. Operator, are you on? All right. Whoever other peers are gone, I'm sorry, Chris. So any questions before Chris moves on to the next section?
So what
Bienvenue au centre de conférence.
API Manager and API Designer?
Okay, so API Manager is very much the same
Vous
concept
entrez en conférence.
as API Manager in Well, that's API Designer is a subset of that functionality. It's the design framework. It's the draft view of APIs, the draft view of products, which you had in version 4 in API Manager, except API Designer does not run on the management node. It's an installable node module that you can go and install from npm.js today. You can run it on your laptop. You don't need a management node. You don't need a data power. You can start writing your Swagger APIs, write your products, start building assemblies and things all on your laptop without external servers. You've got a session on this on tomorrow, I believe.
And that can be integrated later on to the management servers?
Absolutely. You can publish direct from that API Designer to Bluemix or to any management node you configure. So you can push things straight into draft or straight into published, straight from API Designer.
And what exactly are all categorized under product? When we see product in the one of the menu.
This screen, you mean?
Right. Yeah.
This is actually the same screen as in version 4. It lets you view your products, what state they're in, what part of the life cycle they're in, stage, published, deprecated, retired. Just lets you filter and manage your list of products. The states on the right are just to let you filter the list. Mine's not particularly interesting because I've only got the one, but I mean you could have hundreds of things in this list. So the right hand side is just a filter. So yeah, there's no big change here from version 4 other than the concept of product replacing the concept of plan, which I kind of brushed over. I'm guessing has probably already been covered in previous talks.
From the designer, can you push both the Node applications as well as the API Swagger files?
Yes, that's possible.
Okay. And you can do that directly to the managers. Can you do it directly to the gateways?
Well, you would do it to the management nodes, either running in Bluemix or on-prem, and then the management nodes themselves would push it out to the gateways.
Okay, but you can't run it from like Designer and then push directly. You can't bypass the management node. You have to go through a management node.
Yeah. I mean, the concept of publishing your API is pushing that onto an API Connect management node for lifecycle management.
Good. Okay. I just wanted to double check. I was afraid that we could do it directly, and I just wanted to make sure that was still there. Thanks.
All right.
Okay. All right. So, well, Chris, why don't you go ahead and drive on that, and then we'll take questions a little bit later.
All right. So I'm going to spend for the next however long we've got just talking through the design experience, because it has changed really significantly from version 4. And in version 4, it was a proprietary data model which we sort of iteratively grew towards Swagger OpenAPI version 2 throughout its life cycle. We didn't quite get there, but that's what we worked towards. And the UI was the only way to interact with your data. You would load a Swagger file, but from then on it was owned by the management node. And that's pretty frustrating for a power user who doesn't want to click through menu options and build things via a GUI. And the management server held that data, which made version control and continuous integration in particular really tricky to manage. So we tried to address all of that in version 5. We started from scratch with OpenAPI, Swagger v2. You store your data where you want. Typically, we think that's going to be in projects in Git. The management server isn't the master of record anymore. You put that data where you need it to be. And with all the data being simple human-readable text files, you guys store that in your Git repository. You can do diffing between versions. You get so much more power because it's an open text file that you own and you can version control. And then you can interact with that data any way you like. You can use the draft UI on the management server, which our V4 users will be familiar with. You can use the UI direct on your laptop as well, of course, and that's new for 5. You could just edit it as source in any of the UIs, either on management server or the laptop as well, which is another new feature for 5, which I'll show you shortly. Or you can just notepad via Emacs, whatever you like, really. It's just a text file. So much easier for our power users, I think. This is our API editor experience in version 4. I don't want to say any more about that. We've really tried to clean this up and make it much more document-centric in 5. So it's a fairly clean, simple layout. The left-hand side is a table of contents, clickable links that take you directly into that section of the document. We think it's a cleaner, simpler way to work with what are relatively complex documents. Assemblies in version 4. We took what we had in version 4, which is on screen here, and just tweaked a few lines of CSS, and we ended up here. It's a little different. It's going to be easier for me to talk through that in a live system than on a slide. So I'm going to jump out of the slide deck and start playing with some of this stuff so that you can get a feel for it. I think a demo works better here. So is the screen updated? Can you see my Chrome? Yes, I can see in the sharing tools. So
yeah, I can see your API connector. Yep, you're good.
This is an API I wrote this morning. It's not very interesting. It just does some basic calculator functions, but it demonstrates a few of the features that we've got in V4 that close sort of some big gaps that we've been asked about a lot in version 4. So it's a good demo for that. So this is the document view. It's just one long scrolling document of fairly cleanly laid out, well labeled sections that ties very, very closely to the Swagger document. Anybody who knows Swagger is going to be pretty familiar with all of these sections. Many of which are pulled straight across from version 4 as well. Consumes application JSON, XML, produces JSON, XML. I'll show you, as you can see in this API, I've got both consumes and produces checked with JSON and XML. I'll show you how we can write an API that supports both content types simultaneously without very much work on the part of the user, which is very cool for version 5, couldn't do it in version 4. So I'll show that shortly. Some lifecycle things which we had in version 4. Policy assembly, I'll show you shortly. We can add security definitions really simply. API keys, basic, OAuth security definitions, defining different flow types, and just the relevant properties that we need to define those. Fairly straightforward. API properties still exist. They exist in 4. They can be defined here. You just hit the plus and define your new property in line. Nice and simple, nice and quick, nice and clean. I've got 3 paths set up in the Swagger document. Divide, multiply, add. Not exactly best practice names, but good for the demo. If I just expand out the post operation, in here we can do all the usual Swagger things, summaries, descriptions. I've defined a couple of parameters in here. Divide and enumerator as query parameters. We could define path, query, header, form data, body parameters in here. Give them types, mark them required, all that good stuff. And we've got proper, good, top-level support for multiple response codes. This one in particular returns 200 OK with an integer result object. Now this is a definition that I've defined in my Swagger document. I can actually link to it just by clicking the link on the table of contents over on the right here. Go straight to integer result, expand it out, and see it's an object with a result property. I'll type integer. Nothing particularly interesting, but nice and easy to navigate around and define. And I've got 400 response, which is description divide by 0, and I return my error schema. So this is nicer multiple response support than we put out in 4. And I'll show you in the assembly how I can implement completely different flows, completely different responses based on errors that happen during the flow and based on throwing, catching errors and sending back response types that match the documentation.
So would that be the spot, Chris, where you define things like, so with version 4, we were able to use things like JSON schemas or even XML schemas and so on. So is there a similar sort of spot where we can, import that type of metadata, to be usable as part of the request response, or is there another way now?
Absolutely. You're talking there about Swagger definitions. I think if I jump down to the definitions section here, this is where you would define all of your schema, all of the schema that you want your users to be able to see. Any schema that's going to be a return type or a body type, you would define your definition here. It's fairly simple. Add a definition, expand it out, and you can start adding properties here. You can give them types, you can provide example descriptions, make them required. This is not a fully fledged JSON schema authoring tool. It does the simple stuff well, and the complex stuff, we have a source view for that, which I'll show you now actually. So this is how we would see our new users or our users unfamiliar with Swagger interacting with their Swagger documents. But what we've not done in the past is supported our advanced users very well. So we've added this source view for our advanced users. If you know Swagger, if you're comfortable with it, then jump straight into your source view. It's an ACE editor, syntax highlighting editor, type ahead. It's all fully accessible by the links on the left-hand side, the table of contents. It's just another view of exactly the same data. This is your Swagger document. And actually, if I start typing some content in here, and switch over the design view, you see the description's updated there. It is literally just two views onto the same piece of information. This is how we think we solve the problem of complexity for new users without patronizing the very experienced users.
Okay.
In terms of competition, this view here, this looks a lot like Swagger editor from Apogee. And it should do. That's just another ACE editor. What they don't have is this design view. I think this is the easiest way to interact with complex Swagger documents. So I think this should be a good competitive advantage. So I'll be interested in hearing any other tools out there that you think do a better job of this, and let me know, and we'll see what we can learn. Okay, so I don't have very long left, so I want to get to assembly. There's a let me just sign back in. This was an intentional timeout to demonstrate that we've put inline login into version 5. So if you time out whilst you're doing something, or you're halfway through your work and you get involved in a conversation, you can log straight back in. You don't lose your work. You don't lose your place. You can just carry on, which is kind of cool.
Thank you for that. It's very nice.
In version 4, when you wanted to go implement an operation, you would expand out your operation and you would start interacting with the assembly at that operation level. But if you gather together a bunch of operations into an API, there's a pretty good chance that they're related. They share a lot of the same sorts of data. They share a lot of the same sorts of schema. So in version 5, the big change is that assemblies are at an API level. So I've got an assembly open here. The way to read this, let me just zoom in a little bit. Every single call to any operation within this API comes in through the left-hand side there. So that's the entry point for every single operation. Every single operation then hits this activity log policy. Just click on the policy and you bring up an editor for it over on the right-hand side. You can interact with it. The activity log policy is very similar to the one in version 4. So you read from left to right, and every operation follows the same flow. So that's a huge huge change and something I probably can't emphasize enough on this call. So just give you a quick tour around this page. Over on the left-hand side, we've got a list of policies and logical constructs. This is very similar to the left-hand side of assembly in version 4. Many of the policies you'll recognize: invoke, activity log, redact, and then there's some interesting new stuff in here too. So I said this API supports both JSON and XML. I'm going to show you how it does that now. This second policy here, I've called it if user provided XML. If I click on it, we can configure it. I get a simple code editor here to define a snippet of truthy JavaScript that defines the if condition for this policy. So this is the first time we've been able to do sort of logical constructs in API management and API Connect. In this case, I said request.headers.content-type equals application XML. So if the user has provided XML in the body, then we run this subclause here inside the if, which is an XML to JSON policy. Dead simple policy, converts the XML to JSON. And so by the time we exit this policy, we can now just deal with the request body as JSON. We don't have to write logic for both types. Shared logic, just working with the JSON. Then this policy happens, but we'll skip over that for now just to get to this one. And we've got a similar if condition on the way out. If user requested XML, request.headers.accept equals application XML. So if the user wants XML back, then we do a JSON to XML conversion on the way out. This way, just with these two simple ifs at the front and back, we can support users provide an XML and want an XML back, or JSON to JSON, or JSON to XML, XML JSON, anything we want to do. But the logic in the middle only has to deal with one data type. And your backend service, if you have one, does not have to be updated to be able to support all the different content types. So that's a big win over version 4. We were asked for that a lot, and this is the first time we've been able to do it, and I think we do it quite slickly. Okay. Next new policy. In the middle here, we've got handle the operation. Now, obviously, if all operations are active on the same assembly flow, not all operations are going to be handled by the same policies, so we need to be able to switch based on operation type. So that's what I've dragged in here. That's our operations switch at the top left there. And this one's configured with 3 cases. First one does the post to add, the second the post to multiply, and the third to post to divide. You can put multiple operations against each case. It doesn't have to be one-to-one mappings. And then whenever, let me just zoom in on this. When for example, a post multiply comes through, we're going to obviously implement this clause. And this is multiply integers. This is a map. So I'll show you the map in V5. Now, post multiply takes an object with integer 1 and integer 2 in the body, and it produces an output of object with a result property. So I've just mapped integer 1, integer 2 into the result property. Now, in version 4, we would have a plus icon in the middle here to apply a mapping transformation, which some of them were useful, but they weren't really flexible enough to be able to do everything that our users wanted to do. And we never grew the palette out to the sort of size that would make it really useful. What we've done here, if I just click on the output node, I can provide a value here that runs a snippet of JavaScript or a snippet of gateway script that combines my 2 inputs however I want them to be, right? So string concatenation, in this case I'm just multiplying them together, but any trivial piece of JavaScript you want to drop in to merge your 2 inputs, that's how you do it.
So, Chris, when you see things like trivial JavaScript, so let's just say I want to do like a right pad of zeros to a number up to 8 spaces, would that be something that's considered trivial, or would that be not quite so trivial? I'm just trying to figure out what, kind of where the delineation is.
Well, I probably shouldn't have said. I shouldn't have said trivial, to be honest, because you can put whatever you need in here. I believe we support, we provide access to _JS. So you've got some JavaScript libraries in there that you can use. you've got the limitation of gateway script. So there are a few things that you can't do, but otherwise you could put as much logic in here as you really need to do.
Okay.
We've also got a test tool built in here, so I can actually invoke these things. If I just click this play icon up here and choose my my post multiply, it'll update, show me my my client ID, the parameters I need to provide, content type, accept headers, and the post body that I need to provide. It's quite nice. I can take a peek at the schema if I've forgotten, and it will show me what I need to fill out. But if I really can't be bothered, I can hit the generate button, and it will generate me a schema compliant object for me. I don't think anybody on this call is going to be able to validate whether that multiplication is correct, so I probably will just make it a little bit simpler. Let's do 2 times 3. 2 times 3, that's good. And if I invoke, I got my result as 6. Not exactly earth-shattering, but it worked. And just to prove the XML point, if I switch my accept header to XML, so I'm asking for XML back, even though I'm providing JSON in, and invoke again, I've got my result back, still says 6, but I've got XML. Quite cool. And I know I've run out of time, but if you've got a few more minutes, I can just show you the one last thing that I wanted to show you.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. So I want to show the implementation of divide, because this shows another nice new feature. Obviously, division, we have to be a little bit careful. I can write a map that does a simple division, same as we saw in multiply. That's no problem. But before that happens, I've got this if check. If divisor is 0, so request.parameters.divisor equals 0. In that condition, we throw a divide by 0 error. This is a custom error that I've defined for this condition. So anytime somebody tries to divide by 0, this error gets thrown. Now what that means is we don't continue the flow as normal. If I do nothing else, then the user will get a 500 error because some uncaught exception has happened at runtime. But if I want to do something better, I can. So I've got a catch block just down here, so I can catch the exception. I can catch the error that's been thrown by the divide by 0. It's quite similar to the operation switch. I can add multiple catch clauses to catch all different sorts of subsets of errors. We have a few out of the box, redaction errors, transform errors, connection errors that you can deal with and handle. And you can add default cases and things as well. But I've got one clause in here that's to catch my divide by 0 error. And when that happens, I've got this set variable policy that rewrites the error to something a bit nicer. If I open that up, we're actually setting the message body to be message, I'm sorry, Dave, I'm afraid I can't let you do that. We're setting the status code to 400 and the content type to application JSON. So we're fulfilling the criteria that we laid out in the Swagger document. We defined the error, the 400 error on this particular operation, and this is the logic that makes sure that the user gets that 400, gets that error object back when that problem happens. And I can show you this in action as well. Post to divide. If I give it a numerator of 4 and a divisor of 2, first of all, and I get my result is 2. If I change my divisor to 0, oh, and that gave me a 200 OK status, by the way. If I now divide by 0, I get a 400 bad request, and my body is message, I'm sorry, Dave, I'm afraid I can't let you do that. So we've thrown the error out, we've caught it somewhere else, we've handled errors in a clean, consistent way across the board. There's plenty more catch work to come in future releases, but this is a big win over version 4 error handling, I think. That was a very, very, very quick tour of API editing and assembly, but I've already gone like 10 minutes over, so I should stop now and see if you guys have got any questions, I think.
Yeah, no, this is good stuff. Thank you. Exactly what I think we needed to see here. So if we have, I think we'll leave a couple minutes for questions. So if you have any questions for Chris, please do hit *1 and go ahead and fire away.
Hey, Chris, Dinesh here. I have a question. Going back to the Swagger editors, let's say I have definitions in my Swagger. I'm importing from someone who has a definition. I take that, I paste it into the editor. Now, if there's resources or operations that I've defined that do not use some of the definitions that are in the Swagger, does the editor warn me?
Absolutely. So if I were to add a definition here, I don't know if you saw that, but as soon as I added that definition, this validation warnings section popped up. If I click on that, it's telling me that the definition is not used. It's just a warning. It's not that serious. But it's just telling me that new definition 1 is in the document and it's not being used anywhere. If I were to delete, say, integer array, which is being used by, actually, I'm not sure that's, yeah, there we go. So I've deleted integer array, which was in use, and I've now got an error on one of my parameters, which was using it. This parameter was set to use integer array, and I've just deleted it, so I've got a warning. So we've got really good validation, both warnings and errors that show up as soon as you modify that document. And they come with show me links that take you straight to that part in the document if you're in the design view, or straight to the source if you're in the source view. We don't prevent you from saving, though. That's a big change over V4. You can save an invalid Swagger document into draft. You don't have to do everything and get everything right before you're allowed to save anymore.
So, Chris, when you did the testing in the test tool, did it actually do a stage and publish, or did it just do a stage and made it only accessible by the test application?
It did a stage and publish. There's a previous setup phase that we can run through where you pick your catalog. I picked Sandbox, which is the right place for this sort of testing. And you can choose products. You can create products in line. You can republish your products and things in line. You can create new applications and create subscriptions to your application. Everything you need to do in order to be able to call that API, you can sort of do in line here, including publishing out to the catalog. Of course, if your catalog is protected, if it's not a Sandbox catalog, you might get some errors here, but that's by design.
Okay. Cool. All right.
One last question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I have just one more question. In a multi-developer or multi-user environment, since now we have operations within the API, so the design, the assembly is at an API level. When we make changes to, let's say there's two developers, one of them is working on the post operation, another one is working on the delete operation. Would one trot over the other one's changes when they save in the web browser environment?
That's a very good question. In API Manager, yes, that would be the case. But the scenario that you're describing, it's much more likely we think that our users are going to be, in that case, they're going to be sharing a project in Git or in their version control system. They're going to be loading that project, and they're going to be using API Designer to run and develop their assemblies offline. Then the point of merging the master record control is their version control system. So the overwrites would be detected at the point that they try to commit their changes. They have to do merging and things there as they would normally with any other document. But you're right, that problem still exists in the API Manager case.
Great. No, thanks. That helps. Thanks.
Okay, so we are at one. If it's quick, go ahead.
Questions. Yeah. Is there a way to cancel out and not save since the last save when you're in the console?
Yeah, if I've actually got unsaved changes here. I've completely destroyed my Swagger file by trying to create errors to show you guys. If I just head back to my API list, it's going to prompt me, there are unsaved changes. If you continue to change, you'll be lost. Great, that's what I want. And they're gone now. If I go back in, I have a valid document again that's still going to work. We tried really hard to get this right in version 5 because we never really did in version 4.
Right. Also, in the console, any of these consoles, in DataPower, you have a timeout interval parameter, so you don't have to keep logging in every 30 minutes. Is there such a thing in version 5, timeout interval for the console?
There isn't. The timeout is still hard-coded at 30 minutes online, but again, you're going to be doing most of your development work on the laptop in version 5, which will be timeout free.
Oh, okay, cool.
If I wanted to test this with, I'm sorry, one quick question. If I wanted to test this with something like JMeter against just a standalone test server, could I do that from Designer? Like if I had a lot of operations defined and I wanted to make sure they were all working?
But if you wait for the API Designer call tomorrow, what they're going to show you there is the Explore view that we give you in the laptop experience in API Designer, and in there's sort of code generators for 7 or 8 different languages, Curl being one of them. And so I think at that point you'll be able to take things like your Curl statements or the URLs and things and take them out to your JMeter tooling. All that you've got in the assembly tool that I showed you there is a simple repeater that lets you keep repeating that same call synchronously. But if you want to follow on JMeter, then you probably want to take the curls from Explorer.
Got it. Thank you.
All right.
Okay. All right, folks. Thank you for coming on. So, Chris, thank you very much for the presentation and demo. Good stuff. I just want to let everybody know the session that was for this afternoon on Bluemix has been moved out a week. So this will be the last T3 session for today. We'll convene again tomorrow. I will put this recording up. And again, always let's use the community. I'm sure there'll be follow-up questions. Let's use that so everybody can benefit. So again, thank you for your time today. Have a good day, a good evening, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks all.
All right. Thank you. Cheers.
Bye-bye.